There is no such thing as healing in, any sort, like spiritual healing, emotional healing, mental healing. And well, the point is, if you think there is, well, most likely you're kind of doing something wrong. Now, to start off, the point is, well, this might sound very harsh, and of course, I have to be kind of very careful how I point the title out because many people will be triggered, and well, you see, that's gonna be a little problem. I'm not here to trigger people or to, well, tell them some things aren't real, but well, one thing there is that I have a gift to see things the way they are. Now, I may not be a full fledged seer, but the point is, people have to be shaken out of so many of these illusions that are being broadcast and, they are being sold because ultimately so many things make money because everything can make money when people are confused, right? And in a sick society that we live in which everything is so fake that the truth scares people, well, one can actually expect a lot of confusion. Now, when it comes to understanding things, right, the term understanding, right, in occult English, because English is an occult construct, the term actually means standing under the point, right? You're not on the point, you're standing close to it, right? You're not perceiving something, right? You're just trying to logically drill it into your mind to invent some sense, right? To give you some idea, right? Which is again a belief, and that means accepting something without necessary proof, right? So you're just trying to stick some meaning on something so that it suits your, mental needs, right? Your let's say the ideas that you support, right? You need more pillars to support those ideas because see, meaning is nothing else than a lie. Okay, it is just something that we created and we need it in order to understand one another, right? Vocabulary is meaning, right? We give meaning to words, but ultimately that's nothing else than a lie. Because you can take a book and you can just look at it without calling it a book, a novel, or whatever, right? You can call it an elephant instead. It's not going to change the object. Most likely it will change your psychological perspective of things. Now, when it comes to this, the problem is humanity has enslaved itself too much in regards to the mind. The mind is a very sharp tool, okay, but the problem is many people are, kind of seek a blunt weapon instead, okay, because the mind is a very powerful tool, but the problem is if you don't know how to make use of it, right, because it's like one of those super expensive, super complex, highly intricate, devices that we have in the world, like the latest iPhone, the latest Samsung, the smart TVs, and those things are very powerful, okay, they have so many things that one can do. Now, of course, not taking into account certain ideas that, even televisions, it's been proved that, smart televisions actually have a web camera incorporated and it can actually be used to spy on you. Now, I'm not sure if anyone is actually spying on you specifically, but it can actually be done. There have been documentaries and, hackers and, you know, ethical hackers have actually proven that. An ethical hacker is someone who actually tests the resilience of a certain network or tests certain devices against errors and the such, right? So they're not necessarily the bad ones. But in this society, we give so much importance to the mind that literally everything else is left out. And unattended minds are the easiest ones to control because unattended minds are always desperate after more meaning and more meaning, because once you start identifying yourself with things, it becomes like a drug, right? The moment someone, for example, becomes identified with football and let's say a specific team, well, everything is like a drug, right? If you want to take away that, like physically speaking, if you want to take someone's drugs away, right, it will trigger an emotional reaction, right? They will feel insecure and they will even fight for that. That's what a dependency is. You feel that without something, your whole life is gonna be a mess. So psychologically speaking, how your internal aspects recognize that is a death threat, right? It's the same thing, because it's a fear that you lose something that supports your meaning. It supports your web of lies. You're taking a certain drug, right? And that is a lie because you don't like the reality and you want to, back it up. You want to, beautify it with some lies instead of, taking the truth as is, because the truth will always piss people off, or more or less, but usually, and well, actually always, it will set you free. So the point is, meaning is basically nothing else than a lie. It's just something that you create for yourself or to use collectively, like for example money, right? What is money? It is nothing else than a worthless piece of paper. We have given it the importance, right? And we slave ourselves for it, but this is nothing else than collective agreement. We have agreed to do that. And of course, in ignorance, ignorance means nothing else than accepting everything, right? You have a discernment, but you're not willing to use it, right? When you're an ignorant, or when you live unconsciously, because basically it's the same thing, but let's actually focus on unconscious, because even if they're the same thing, some people may feel pissed if they're called ignorance. When you live ignorantly or unconsciously, right, everything is an impulse. You're living just like a machine. The way a machine lives is it constantly checks its own code for conditions to fulfill. And it only fulfills those conditions that are true. Because in certain situations, some conditions will switch off, some will switch on. And each time the code runs, the true conditions will be executed, right? This is the same for humans. Because the most important code, right, that will have the most important influence on you is your physical body, right? The most important things are your survival and pain, right? Because when something hurts, even your little finger, okay, when it hurts, it doesn't matter. You can be the biggest guru, the whatever, right? When something in your physical body hurts, there's no more hunger, no more sleep, no more nothing. You just want the pain away. It can be a soft pain, it can be a harsh pain, especially if it's a harsh pain, then there's definitely nothing else around, right? And then there's also your survival. And the mind is just a survival tool, right? So being a survival tool, it's nothing else than a tool to use for that, because it belongs to the physical body, and the physical body is only good for survival. How I see life is technically like a little RPG. You have your little brain that wants the treasure. The treasure is the oxytocin, and well, apparently it can only be achieved, naturally speaking, through a so-called orgasm. But naturally it can also be achieved through other things like great achievements, like for example slaying your arch nemesis after a very long, let's say set of battles or something like that, or when you do bungee jumping, preferably or most likely for the first time, when you fly a jet for the first time alone. There are different things that can trigger oxytocin, and it also differs per individual. Now, also psychological disorders may or may not also influence this, or other problems that people have. Especially the more ignorant people are, they will usually tend more towards the lower natures, right, like sexuality, for example, or drug abuse. Because that's ultimately kind of the only quest of the brain. It wants that. Everything else is just an adaptation, right? It adapts itself to the rules of life. It does everything needed in order to survive. And it kind of does. It keeps the whole physical body active. It is also capable of perceiving in multiple dimensions, right? Like it's been scientifically proven, the brain functions in 11 different dimensions, which guess what are actually the 11 grand dimensions of life. This is kind of fuzzy for me, but okay, science has proved this apparently. But what's even more important is that, the brain can actually be used consciously for such a thing, right? So the point is, all these are kind of meanings that should be taken into account individually. Unfortunately, society wants a herd of people that all think and act in the same way because, well, ultimately that's the point. If you look at how things go, it's not that, you're always distracted with all sorts of things. It's like basically everyone is doing the same thing. All people are the same. you may not like this truth, but well, I suddenly had an awakening moment, and well, that's what I ended up. And not in the sense that they don't have different qualities, okay? But when you draw the line, kind of all the people are the same. Some people may be better at something or worse at something, but they each fill a certain role. Now, of course, inequality, socially speaking, will always exist, but ultimately there is a piece of life in between each of those, and metaphysically speaking, spiritually speaking, there is the potential to reach the ultimate nature of this physical body within each and every one, and that is equal potential. Even those people who you think of as the most ignorant people can be helped to a certain extent and can actually reach such levels. Surely, this usually may take more lives than one because, well, that's one point of reincarnation, but let's not actually stray too much from the topic. So the point was that, meaning is given too much credit because ultimately meaning is nothing else than a little lie. Everything that use, your words, your literally, expressions, everything is technically a little lie because it is not true, right? We have created it and we're using it and as a tool, right? Just like you'd use a hammer to, I don't know, bang a nail in the wall or something like that, right? That's the point, yes? But the point is, when you put some meaning on those, it's technically kind of a little lie because, well, it's like someone curses you, right? When someone curses you, what's the point, right? You only fuss about something, someone curses you, and you fuss about it only when you're ignorant, only when you live impulsively. Because you see it as an attack and your only impulse is fight or flight, right? You fight or you cower to what they say. Because that's what ignorance actually is, accepting everything without discernment. Without discernment, there is also no patience. That's one of the reasons why people nowadays don't have any patience, because they always work on impulses. They allow their impulses to be far stronger than them. So the point is, if you want to see people being, aware or simply unconscious, this is the best and easiest way. You just see how much patience they have. If especially they have different ideas like it must be or it should be, right? This kind of easily shows a fact, right? It easily shows that they're either slavish, they always want others to prompt them where to go, right? They're not going to assume any responsibility. They just want to be said and told what to do, and they're okay with that, right? It doesn't mean necessarily that they're slaves, but this can also be a bad part, especially if they don't take responsibility for what they do. Some people actually work well when you prompt them what to do, because many people live in that point. I'm good at this topic, or I'm so good at this topic, but I don't know how or where to act, right? So they need someone to tell them, hey, you should probably do this. Okay, I'll do that, right? So when it comes to healing, okay, healing is something that, usually you hear the most in video games, right? And in video games, it's just a simple, play of variable values, right? It's just a variable whose value increases, and there's always a conditional that checks whether, the, let's say, current hit points do not exceed the, maximum hit points allocated to that character, right? Because, you want to make the healing not go beyond the, the ceiling, let's say. So healing is kind of, this thing probably. Many people playing video games, they kind of have impressions that, bodily and otherworldly, especially metaphysical healing is something like that. And you'll probably hear a lot of people, speaking about theta healing, Reiki, and the such. There are a lot of gophers, okay? Now, those silly ones that most likely don't know what they're talking about, right? And they all have those seminars, right, in which they teach you how to be a healer, how to, provide healing, how to, heal your loved ones, because it's always your loved ones, right? In part of manipulation, there's always going to be your loved ones, right? We live in a society so fake where the truth scares people and no one cares about anyone, but it's always your loved ones, okay? Even, the CEOs of, grand scale social medias will always use, we want to connect people with their loved ones. Really now? in a society where no one knows what love truly is, right? Because many people believe that love equals sex, and well, okay, enjoy your hell then, because if you believe such things, you're only gonna live the greatest hell possible, because that's what actually sex is. If done with the wrong people, well, it will bring hell in your life. Literally, but well, this is something that many people won't like to swallow, so well, you always have to leave people to their own hells, because well, if you don't, it's like you want to join their own. So when it comes to healing, how is healing performed, or what exactly is it? I mean, there is physical healing, right? Physical healing is something that happens, naturally, right? Because it is in the nature of physicality to restore itself in a certain way. But some people might say, hey, but well, isn't that biological healing only? Well, if we speak at the grand scale of the universe, I doubt that there is only biology in here, okay? Like, there can be elemental life forms, and I'm sure there are even on this planet, right? We may call them spirits, we may call them whatever. I'm sure there are a lot of these, but, we live in so much ignorance that we're not capable of perceiving those. And considering so many people are so afraid even of their own shadow, well, I'd actually say that this is a good thing that it doesn't happen. So let's actually see about that. Well, in metallurgy, right, in the, let's say, industrial practice that takes into account the, production of, creation of products from metals and alloys, right, there is a thing called resistance, right? Now, resistance, as it is named, right, resistance can be defined as, again, a meaning, but we still need meaning, right, to understand one another. So resistance is the ability of, metals in this case, or products, right, or let's say alloys, right, to the ability, right, to regain their original form, right? It may be hard to expect, but well, apparently even metal and alloys have this, right? And well, so many other materials, right? When you handle materials, there are different topics that use this element of resistance, right? Now, I'm not a practitioner of the such, okay? I read a lot, I know people, and they kind of told me all sorts of things, and it's not bad, like I usually end up knowing a lot of things in a lot of topics, and well, I also forget a lot, but okay. So the physical, okay, has this tendency to always return to its original shape. Now, this can actually be interpreted in a way, because there's technically well, let's not call it a spiritual, because many people might start thinking that, metal objects also have a soul or whatever thing, but, everything kind of has, in a way, a blueprint, because you most likely have heard of a word called karma. Okay, now karma means action, karma means structure, karma means memory. It can mean a lot of things, but ultimately, karma means memory. Okay. Now, when you mold something, right, that is kept in a specific structure, not because you molded it, but because there is a universal memory, right, which through molding, you give it a fixed structure, right? And of course, it will keep to that structure. If you want to change that structure, there is still a karmic imprint in that object, and it may still want to reach a certain level, that it once had. Of course, karma also dissipates, so, uh, it's kind of hard to interpret, but, there are things that, well, I may not be the best to explain. So when you use physical healing, okay, let's get to the biology. When you have biology, technically what healing means, or what healing actually implies from a purely biological standpoint, okay, what healing actually is you're taking greater care of your body, because the air that you breathe gives a certain quality to your body, right? Just like your car. If you use a certain, type of gasoline, right, your engine will run on a certain level, let's say, right? If you give your car a higher quality, right, higher octane number gasoline, right, it's gonna work much better, right? And it's gonna hold you for longer. Well, if your engine is compatible with that, but that's one comparison, right? So the point about that is the same thing. If you suddenly eat more healthier foods, and of course this, there are a lot of nutritionists out there, but not many people may tell you exactly one little secret. You have to try different things. Don't try something just because someone tells you you're gonna lose fat. Each and every one individual is unique in their own sense. And pharmaceutical sciences and, medicine in general kind of have this bad habit of treating people as if it's, the same problem always, right? From the little knowledge that I learned from, Chinese medicine, right? For example, when you have a belly ache, okay, a belly ache can, or a belly problem actually, that can be felt at times in the head. So you might actually have a headache, but it's not your head that actually has a problem. Or, for example, some of those problems, right, of belly problems, can be felt, for example, through reflexotherapy, right? Because I've also done a course in this, and belly problems can actually be felt in the feet. Well, actually, in the soles of your feet, kind of almost any problem in your physical body can be felt. But again, reflexotherapy is not a substitute for, medical consultation. You might actually tell them, hey, you know what, I'm feeling something wrong around here, okay? But, just don't, don't overstress it, okay? Don't take it as, don't take it for granted. But a medical consultation may not hurt. So ultimately, you're gonna hopefully learn how to breathe better, how to be calmer, because calmness is also a very powerful thing. Many people are trapped in the prison of their own mind, so ultimately what they are doing is they are tormenting their mind. But what their mind is? Well, the mind is technically another you. It's, let's say, you probably heard that there are certain, let's call them dimensions of our own selves. Now, of course, to some people it may still sound a bit sci-fi, but you have your physical body, and you don't have just a physical body. You have an energy body, okay, which is kind of the scaffolding for your physical body. Anything that happens to that body, it also will be felt at your own body. That was why I mentioned breathing. The way you breathe, right, prana, right, the air that you breathe, influences your energy body. That is why many people don't live long and have non-healthy lives, because their breathing is superficial, right? So it's like their pranic body, right, their energy body is not fed accordingly, so it will wither faster, right? The energy body is basically the scaffolding that we have. And, well, it may be mistaken for the soul, but it's not the soul. Well, technically there is no such thing as a soul. It's kind of a Christian invention, because indeed there is something that leaves the physical body. Well, when the physical body is no longer compatible with life, yes, right, what we call death, yes, all the life energies will leave. But the point is, there are multiple bodies that exist. We also have a mental body. We also have an emotional body, right? I don't know if there is a psychological body, but I know there's the psychological dimension, but I know there's a mental and emotional body. Now, these bodies are technically also trapped, well, technically they overlap the physical body, right? But they are technically trapped, let's say, with your soul, right? They are different dimensions, but they are trapped in the physical body. So the problem is, they are kind of your prisoners, if you want to take it so. They are kind of the prisoners of the physical body. When you overthink, the problem is you're tormenting, literally, your emotional body, but especially your mental body. That is a big problem. Because when you create thoughts and when you overthink, especially when you invest your life energies into that, right, emotions especially, the point is you're creating a lot of shocks around you. You're creating a lot of shock waves, especially if you're putting hatred, anger, distress, right? Those are distress signals. If you look attentively, animals are highly capable of perceiving that, because animals can only think about their survival. So their survival senses are so acute. They just need to look at you and they feel your chemistry, your biology, and especially your magnetic sense, right? Because when you are angry, you are exuding a lot of radiation in a way. Well, it's not, that kind of radiation, okay, gamma radiation and such. But imagine that you're putting out magnetic signals, right? When you're angry, when you're fearful, right? Because that is also biologically accompanied by hormones, right? That's why, for example, predators know when you are afraid. And when you are afraid, it's the sign that you are weak. That's why they attack you. If you're not afraid of them, you will see that they usually don't attack. If you show them that you're not afraid of them. Well, unless probably when they are, like fully hungry, but well, there are cases and cases. So technically, when you overthink, what you're doing is you're technically tormenting that mental body of yours. That is why you may actually have a headache, because that being right there is like a twin brother of yours, right? It's not capable of screaming, it's not capable of doing anything, it cannot escape. Through your overthinking, you're actually tormenting that poor being, because when you overthink, you're creating shock waves, right, through the whole body, and you're actually like, tormenting it. It's like you're showering it in, jolts of electricity. That's kind of the problem. And that's why so many people who overthink usually have headaches, because each of these metaphysical bodies that you affect, right, they will suffer far more, in the sense that before, right, far before the physical body. And if there happen to be some problems at the level of those bodies, sooner or later those problems will influence in a way your physical body, because your physical body has these bodies as scaffolding, right? The energy body, the mental body, the psychological body, right? These bodies are a scaffolding to the physical body, because the physical body is technically, let's say, like those other bodies are, these bodies are technically, how I can call them, like the pinpoints, let's say, of a pyramid, right? Those bodies, right, represent the corners of the bases of the pyramid, right? And the physical body is technically the pinnacle, right? The upper corner, the point, or whatever you want to call it, right? The whatever was that word? Yes, the highest point, right, of the pyramid. Because it actually, the physical body has those other bodies as scaffolding, so it is obvious that any problem that appears in those, right, in the pillars that support this physical body, will also be felt by the physical body, right? So when you have so much slavery, right, when you have so many people distracted and, living in constant fear, right, they will not be able to access such things. Most likely they will also disregard such things as bad, right, or awkward. But ultimately, everyone knows in a certain way that there is something beyond this physicality, and there is a longing for something like this. So biological healing is nothing else than, you breathing more carefully, because, this feeds your pranic body, right? Eating more carefully, because, this means that it will handle your biological body, right? Your physical body. The other bodies are also physical, but they are less perceivable. You will be much more manageable of your life energies, right? You'll not invest them as stupidly as possible, right? As you once used to, right? In hatred and lower vibrations, because those vibrations are like black holes. They require a huge amount of energy. And when you invest your energies into that, you just show that you don't care for yourself and for your physical body. Your physical body and your other bodies are doing their best to allow you to experience this life. So why torment them, right? It's just bad energies that you have taken from other people. And well, sex is one of the best ways to take such energies. You may call these negative energies as demons if you want, because once one has sex with others, right? Or, well, they keep close to people who don't suit them for too long, right? Negative people for too long, well, that kind of becomes a big problem. Because, well, you're gonna share a lot of things that you don't want, karmically speaking, and that's gonna be somewhat harder to relieve yourself of. Now, you'll also need to stop overthinking, right? Because when you stop overthinking, your mental body will be much better, right? So your overall health will be stronger, just by doing certain things like this. Of course, each and everyone has to do their own research, right? Now, when it comes to healing, right, from a metaphysical standpoint, now, wait, so I was speaking about food. Yes, food is very powerful because every 35 days or something like that, the physical body kind of renews its whole cells, right? It's not that cells are born every 35 days, but it is said that, you know, cycles of life, for cells in the body are different, right? Each cell has its own, life cycle, right? And it is said that around every 35 days, your body kind of has refilled most, if not all, of its main cells, right? So the point is, each and every 35 days, you have kind of completely different cells, completely new cells. The point is, the quality of the food that you put into your body, right? The quality of things you feed your mind with, aka how much you torment your mental body, also has a minor influence compared to the physical food that you intake, right? Because physical food is what keeps your physical body mainly alive. The air that you breathe and how you breathe it, right? The thoughts that you think, right? The emotions that you put out, all of these have an influence over, the quality of, the next generations of cells that you will have. Because the healthier your cells, well, technically, the happier your body, right? Happy cells make a happy body. Now, when it comes to spirituality, well, spirituality kind of, doesn't disregard the physical body, okay? But it takes into account, or aims to take more into account, the other bodies, right? The mental body, the emotional body, psychological body, and, well, so on and so forth. Technically, it wants to regulate the life energies within you, because lower quality life energies will kind of be an energy attractor, and you don't want negative energies in your body, because every bit of anger and hatred kind of sediments itself into you in different parts of the body where there are these lacks of energy. As I was saying, there is this rule that I call the rule of the 100%. Everything can only be 100%. So when you manifest yourself negatively all the time, the point is, you're giving your life energies, and when you're giving those life energies, you're always going to be 100%. So there's always an exchange. You're giving some of your energies and you're taking something else in return. You don't necessarily need to take something in return, because you're shifting your energies at the same time. Some of them will be shifted into negativity, like, for example, water. Think about water, that it has memory, and your 70% memory, right? Because, well, your whole body has its own memory, which is far more powerful than water, but water is also alive. Don't believe me? Well, think about the fact that we also have some reactions in our body. What do you feel when you are afraid, right? You feel chills down your spine. Well, how are these chills actually felt? And you may actually, if you're vulnerable, you may actually feel like a wave, right, going through your body. Well, what exactly that wave is technically water within your body crystallizes to the emotional reaction that your body has. It may sound very, sci-fi or hard to believe for many people, especially if they are, slowly waking up from, you know, uh, the sleep that the Matrix had put us for so long. But the point ultimately is, hey, that's actually the case, right? When you're afraid, you're creating some hormones in the physical body, but you're also emitting some shock waves, right? Emotional shock waves, magnetic shock waves, right? And animals can actually perceive that because they are very perceptive to such things. So the point about that is, when you unleash that, the water, as since water is also alive and she has its own existence, and it also reacts to that, right? Because it is unconscious. It only reacts to, well, literally everything that influences it. Because it doesn't have a shape, it always seeks a shape, and how it crystallizes, it's only a result of what influences it. If you don't believe me, there have been experiments with this. People putting water in different glasses and speaking towards those glasses, right? Addressing them in a bad way, in a good way, and after a month, once they look at the water, right, in each of the glasses, they saw that water actually crystallizes differently. It actually has shapes right? That are more beautiful if spoken to gently and nicely, and they also seem to crystallize in a more compact way, right? In a darker way, right? If you swear at it. Because, well, water is just like an empty hard drive, okay? It stores literally all sorts of memories that it has. Now, the point is, you know, uh, it also clears itself of those. But the point is, on the moment, it's actually a very good indicator of what it has been influencing it. So literally everything that you eat, everything that you drink is energy. Now, energy is nothing else than compacted information, because ultimately everything is information in this world. And not because we are in the information age. No, we are just playing with some little aspects, some subtle aspects of the universe. But the point is, everything is information. In order for you to exist, there's definitely a code that allows your existence to live. And your consciousness is also run by information, because technically that's also information. When we speak about the healing of the other things, right? When you want to heal others, pay very great attention, because you want to heal others, okay? When you want to heal others, that is an impulse, right? You want to make a change in the world, but not changing the world is the problem. Well, that's also a problem on its own term, but the want is a problem, because you are not doing it from the, from your heart, from a sense of compassion towards others. You're doing it from an impulse, which still shows a certain layer of ignorance. And impulsiveness is also bad, because, well, it kind of shows you don't care about others, you just want the result. That is the biggest problem that our planet has, because we have been trying to fix the planet in this last decade, right? Last 2 decades, well, the previous decade and this one more especially, and, well, let's actually say the previous century and this one. We have been trying to fix the planet, but uselessly, because all we are doing is just impulsively trying to heal the planet. We don't care about the planet, but we just want to fix it. And the way we've been fixing the planet, we've kind of been ruining literally everything. So if we keep trying to fix the planet this way, probably there won't be any planet left, right? So ultimately there is a big problem, right? There is a big trouble. Healing is also something that has to come out of compassion. You don't do healing because you want it, right? The moment you do that, it clearly shows a lack of self-esteem, right? It clearly shows that you want to control things. When you want to control things, it definitely shows a lack of self-esteem, right? Impulses, ignorance, right? Because when you're not an ignorant, you don't want to control things, right? You're not stuck in the idea of controlling things, because you only know that the only thing you can control is yourself, your life energies, how you react to things. Because when you react to things, reaction is only impulsive, right? Okay, this is, much fuzzier to explain, but ultimately, when you react to things, it's only impulsive, right? It's an impulse to fight or flight, right? So healing is not something that you must do, okay? Healing is not something that you do in, those silly ways that many people teach you, right? Like you're sending energy through Reiki. Like I did Reiki, okay? And, well, I'm level 3 in Reiki Usui, okay? And the point is, you are taught that you are sending the other one energy. No, you don't send energy to anyone, because if you send energy to someone without them wanting that, that can actually be perceived as an attack, and you don't want that type of karma in your body. And I'm not saying those spiritual teachers and preachers are necessarily wrong, but the point is, if you want to heal others, the only way to heal others is by being, like a lighthouse, okay? Because a lighthouse, what it does, it guides ships towards that. Each and every body has a blueprint. And now, the first point is, when you want to heal yourself, you want to find out something about that blueprint of yours, right? You want your body to reach basically the peak of its performance and the peak of its existence, the way it will function at the best potential, which is technically the blueprint, right? Because ever since the body is created, technically it slowly dies, right? The quality of each and every cell that is replicated, right, the generation, the quality of the DNA and RNA, okay, slowly fades away. So that's why, the next generation of cells is slightly, like a millionth time uh, weaker in terms of RNA. That is why technically the physical body weakens itself, right? It becomes more and more feeble in time because there is no such thing as, perfect replication. That is technically the point of physicality, because physicality is highly represented by time. Time kind of doesn't exist, but well, let's call it something like time, because physicality is limited and will always live in a limited nature. Everything that is physical will come to an end because physicality is compacted energy. It is compacted information. That information will never hold forever. So the point is that information can reach, a level in which it becomes compacted, right? It can live unconscious levels of being, so it is no longer something inert, right? It can actually reach a level in which it actually starts living in a way. And, that's the type of, most beings, because everything is alive around you. Everything is alive. You don't believe it? Well, that's a little problem, right? Everything is alive. When you have objects and things around you, right, those are alive in a way. They have atoms and particles within them that actually move around. It's a Brownian movement. That movement shows liveliness, right? It's not that, okay, they are not even unconscious, right? They are technically unconscious because they don't have an awareness. They don't have a self-awareness, and just like anyone who is unconscious, they literally accept everything, right? They always accept everything because they don't have anything else. You act in any way. Actually, let's dive a bit into something which I called, I heard it is called the pendulum effect. Have you ever wondered why in your own house you always have kind of the same urges in certain specific places of your house, right? When you are in bed, you always feel, drowsy, you always feel like you want to take a nap, but when you're not in your bed, you don't necessarily feel that anymore, right? Like, I've actually seen that, right? When you're in certain parts of the house, usually you may think certain different things. If you have certain habits, like when you're in your kitchen, you always think about food, that will become more and more prevalent, right? Because every thought that you create has a certain impact, has a certain energetic impact on your surroundings, right? You're technically um, bestowing some of your energy in the term of thoughts, right, onto the different things that you have, even the clothes that you wear, right? Someone can touch them if they are perceptive enough, and they can actually feel through the clothes what you have been thinking of and what you have been doing in a way, because all your actions, right, put out energy, right? You're always putting out energy. And you're also impregnating your clothes and everything that you come in touch with, right? Have you ever had those moments when you move through town and suddenly you have a certain awkward thought, right? Like you're, a very great intense fear that your spouse would leave you, right? But you're not even married, right? Those are thoughts that you pick up from other people, right? Just because you happen to be in that place. And well, many people think about this, and well, if they linger in a certain space, usually, bus stations and such, it can actually happen that sooner or later some of those thoughts, which most likely you will take upon you, some of those thoughts you will actually come across, right? You will see that they are active somewhat in your mind. Now, when a thought is active in your mind, it wants to be liberated. So the point is, you actually have to let it go. You just have to become a judge, become a non-judge, right? You actually have to let them flow. What it means is you have to accept that thought the way it is. You just let it flow. You will become conscious. You'll become aware of that thought, irrespective of how stupid you think it is, because it wants to leave, right? Everything that is physical becomes so because it has to experience certain things, right? And it has a journey through which it becomes conscious, right? It is always a journey from the unconscious to conscious. When it becomes conscious, its point is to reach the highest peak, because when it has higher knowledge, it just knows that from unconscious you reach consciousness, and from consciousness you simply have to dispel yourself, not kill yourself, dispel yourself, because technically everything that you know, everything that you are, is different types of karma. which is technically nothing else than rigidity, structure. You want to destructure yourself in order to become again one with creation, right? This goes very deep, but okay. So when we have concepts like these, the idea of healing simply sounds, like it's very primitive to me. Many people believe that, you keep your arms on someone and you're gonna send them some energy, but you don't know if you were actually correctly, qualified spiritually for that, because someone puts their hand on you and they says, okay, I've initiated you in this. It's not necessarily so, and everyone may perceive such initiations in a certain way, and it also depends on the quality of the initiator. That's the most important thing, because if you are initiated, it also matters that you know your life cycles. There are situations and moments in the day when you are not gonna be capable of doing that, healing, let's call it so, at the same potential, right? You're not gonna benefit of the same power, right? You're not gonna have the same, let's say, healing capability, and especially you don't do healing when you are tired, because that's when you actually become a sponge. So the point about healing technically is that you cede some of your energy to the other, which means that, well, in return, you'll take some of theirs. That's how things always work. But you don't have to cede them some of your energy, you're already ceding your energy. If you were suddenly capable of seeing only, let's say, spiritual energy, right, you would see the so-called thing named an aura. Now, the aura exists because technically you're always putting out energy. You're technically like a bright star, which puts out some energy, and at the same time, you're also taking in some of the energy around. That is why when you go somewhere that, has been known for, bad things, right, like a, higher crime area of your town, or a space that's been represented by very awkward, paranormal phenomena, you'll have different situations, right? In some you'll feel uneasy, in some you'll feel, I don't know, just hateful but not necessarily afraid, in some you'll feel just purely afraid. There have been a lot of things that happened in there, and even other people visited that, and fear is a very powerful emotion. It sediments itself very fast, it is generated in huge amounts, and it usually takes the most to dissipate. So the problem is, when you go in there, you're gonna feel that the most because it's also the most intense, right? So when you are happy, for example, you won't feel such things because happiness is a very light emotion, right? When you imprint everything around you with joy, right, it is a compact way, right? It is a compact information. Technically, it is physical to a certain extent because emotions are also physical, but they are very, very less perceptive. So when you exude such things, right, these, being very light, they dissipate very fast. That is why when you go in certain places, it's always the lower vibrations, which are more condensed, that you'll perceive. So the idea of healing is that you can actually exude some positive energy, which hastens the dissipation, right? The return into creation, right, of those negative vibes, because you're technically turning them again into something neutral, right? Anything that has a shape automatically is separated from creation, because physicality means a severing from creation, right? You are technically separated, right, in a physical shape, which means that you're also going to experience it for a very short time, because physicality is well represented, let's say, by time, right? Well, actually, yes, physicality is a result of what is called a curvature of time. Now, point be said, healing is something that can be done by just sitting by the other person, right? But how I would present healing is, well, just as I said it's much earlier in this video, right? You just teach the person how to take care of their, physical body, their life energies, and, well, their other energy bodies. Because, well, if they do that, they're going to ensure a greater health, right? If you must heal, if you feel that you must heal people, you're going to act impulsively. And when you act impulsively, you're technically suffering from certain layers of ignorance. Don't forget that ignorance, or unconscious living, means accepting everything without discernment. And the point is, you are fully open to literally everything, The moment you want to heal someone who's very, very negativistic, you're technically inviting even their demons into your world. And those energies are, well, they aren't reluctant, right, to deny you, right? They're always interested in something else, right? Now, let's not discuss about demons that much because we're not having that as a topic of interest for now. But the point about that is you're going to invite negative energies and thoughts, right? You're technically going to invite their ideas of overthinking into your own mind, right? And as you are going to overthink, when you overthink, your mind quickly switches from one thing to another. So it's kind of easy, very easy to lose case of the things you have been overthinking about, right? So healing is not something that actually exists. Technically, what you do as healing is you're basically a catalyst, okay? You are exposing your higher energies, your higher vibration, right, to people who are sick or something like that. Because technically, you want them to use your energy as a blueprint, right, as a idea, right, as a reminder. And the physical body has its own memory. It knows if it feels something that it is higher vibrational, it will automatically start, adjusting itself to those frequencies. And that's how healing occurs. You don't have to send people energy. That's kind of, foolish way of doing things. And don't try to send people energy because you don't want to deal with such types of karma, because you don't want to send people energy, especially if they don't want it. But even if they say, I want it, okay, again, be careful that they say want, okay? It's an impulse, right? It's not that they are accepting it wholeheartedly, right? They're just impulsively accepting it, which means they're probably doing it for your own sake. But ultimately, when you say I want, that is technically a lie, because you're always accepting something just because of an illusion that without that your life is bust, right? Don't forget, meaning is a lie. So if someone says I want you to heal me, well, it's technically a lie, because want is an impulse, right? They either want your attention or, I don't know, they feel, again, a belief. It doesn't mean that is necessarily true. So pay very great attention how you spend your energy and who you address it towards, because you may draw a lot of things that you may not like. And let's not forget that as a healer, you're going to expose yourself to a lot of people and a lot of energies, because when you go to someone to heal them at their own house or even at a hospital, think that hospitals are nothing else than energetic black holes. There's so much suffering and negativity in there that, well, technically you will feel drained, okay? And you have to get back home and you'll have to do some serious showers, because a shower allows you to, cleanse a lot of the negative energy that you may draw, because usually that gets stuck in your auric field, and that can partly be cleansed through water, it can be cleansed through earth, it can be cleansed through wind, right? It's called a wind bath, and there's also a fire bath. But of course, I invite everyone to read about these as well. So technically, through healing, you're nothing else than a catalyst, okay? And as the last detail, usually women are the best catalysts for themselves. And there is a reason why women have always slept, close to other women, right? Now, many people would say that, it's obvious that women, in big houses where there were a lot of families, right, in medieval and ancient times, right, where there were more families living together, usually men would sleep in a chamber of theirs and women in a chamber of their own. Now, why this was highly good, okay, highly beneficial to women, was because their menstrual cycles, right, they would adjust themselves, okay, according to the healthiest woman, right? And it was always good that women slept, in the same room, because being close one to the other, the ones whose bodies, were a bit more feeble, they could actually readjust themselves based on, the healthier women, right? Because women are highly connected to the lunar cycles, right? Because that's technically what the menstrual cycle is, right? It is in deep connection to the so-called lunar cycle, right? Because if the woman wasn't connected, if women weren't connected to lunar cycles, no one would be born in this world, right? That is how, the end of the world is actually going to impact us. They said that the moon actually goes further and further away from the earth. So point be said, as this happens, well, that is kind of a little problem, because the influence on, the menstrual cycles of all female animals, right, us included, is going to be less and less severe. And, well, there will be a point where that will be lost. The more, you know, the more it lessens, right, the more this influence lessens over the menstrual cycles of the animals, the less they will feel any need to reproduce until, well, that moment when they will simply no longer feel the need to reproduce. So that's technically when a so-called end of the world will come. And this is an end of the world that simply doesn't require any, bomb or anything like that. Every species, will no longer feel any need, to replicate. It's like it never existed. So, well, everything will just fade away. So all this being said, hopefully you've liked this kind of seminar-ish, video. I rarely want to do videos as long as this, but, well, ultimately I don't mind, because I know I can speak on several topics for a bit. Sharing some of my wisdom is never a bad point, and I don't mind it. Hopefully you liked it. Feel free to share your opinions. You are appreciated. Take care of yourselves. You are loved and appreciated again. Ferenc Board signing out.